Care of our veterans, for me, and this has been one of my absolute highest priorities, and the highest priority just about of the administration. And David is working tirelessly to deliver the care our veterans so richly deserve. And it should have happened years ago, but it's happening right now. So thank you very much, David.
With us now, the head of the largest healthcare system in the United States, Secretary of the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, Dr. David Shulkin. Doctor, thank you so much for being with us. Or Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for being with us. What is the state of the VA right now? We've obviously heard horror stories over the past 5 years. Where are we today?
Well, you know, Joe, I'm a doctor, so I like to put things in those terms. And the VA has been in critical condition. And when you're in critical condition, you need intensive monitoring. But I feel pretty confident that we're heading towards being stable and towards improvement.
How are we doing with the wait lists?
We're doing much, much better. First thing that we've done this year, as soon as I became secretary, is we put all of our wait time data out there for the public to see. So everything that we have, people can look up and see what the wait times are. And we have same-day services in primary care and mental health in every single one of our VAs now.
Same day?
Same day in our medical centers.
Willie Geist is in New York, and I'm sure has a question for you. Willie.
Yes, Secretary Shulkin, good morning. It's good to see you. Can you put in terms, now that you've been in the job for a few months, just what it is about the VA and its bureaucracy that's so difficult to get your arms around? I think people look at this and they say this should be easy. These are people who volunteered to go fight wars as the rest of us sat here in comfort. These men and women ought to be taken care of. Why is it so hard to get the care to the people who need it?
Well, I think it's a great question. First of all, we are committed to making the VA a place that all of us are proud of, that does its mission to serve veterans. But this is a very, very large system, and it's been years of bureaucracy and red tape that's grown one year after another. And now we have to make some changes that have been delayed for a long, long time.
But for example, on a wait list, Mr. Secretary, why do those even exist? Why should any veteran sit for days, months, and years in some cases to get the care they need, and sometimes, tragically, in the interim, take their own lives, for example? Why should that even exist?
Well, it shouldn't exist, and we're not allowing that to exist. I think in 2014, when this crisis came out, the American public was absolutely outraged, and that was an appropriate response. We've now focused on veterans that need care right away, those that have urgent care needs, and they're being addressed. There are some veterans that are waiting for routine care needs, 30 days or longer. But if you're waiting for a routine physical exam, that doesn't bother me as much as any veteran that needs to wait for urgent care. We're not going to allow that.
Gene.
I'm curious as to how you work with the White House. Is there a go-to person that you go when you have a problem that needs to be solved that they can solve with a phone call or by changing a simple rule or something like that? Who do you go to?
I think that there's several people in the White House. We work very closely with the Domestic Policy Council. We're also working closely with the American Innovation Office to make sure that we are looking...
Jared Kushner. But
yes, and making sure that we are looking at the best practices that business has and that technology can offer. And certainly, I work directly with the President and the Vice President.
Heidi.
Given all of the repeated deployments that are thrust upon these service members, unlike really any other war in our history, mental health has become such a huge issue. What are the steps that are being taken to try and screen and immediately interject when these guys come back home? Because so much of what we see even in the news and some of these tragedies, taking their own lives or taking the lives of their family, what are some of the changes that are being made to try and interject early?
Well, I talk about one clinical priority and only one that I have, and that is to reduce veteran suicide. I think it's a crisis right now that's happening not only among veterans but among all Americans. But for veterans in particular, this is our focus. And so what we're doing is we're hiring more mental health professionals. We're getting our telehealth out to areas of the country where there aren't mental health professionals so that veterans can get access to some of the best care anywhere. I've just announced a new policy change that we will be providing mental health services to those who have been other than honorably discharged, because when we look at the rate of suicides, it's higher among homeless veterans and those that don't have access to services like those that were other than honorably discharged.
Bob Woodward.
Mr. Secretary, the question I have is, who dropped the ball here? This didn't just all of a sudden pop up as a problem. It accumulated over years. What person or what group of people did President Bush, did President Obama just tune out?
Well, I do think that there is a lot to look back upon and to learn from. And I think the basic lessons are that our demand for services did not match our capacity. And I think that there's a lot of blame to go around. But this was a cultural problem in the VA, that our leaders in the field didn't feel comfortable to speak up and to say they weren't getting the right resources.
All right, Mr. Secretary, thank you so much for coming by.
Thank you.
We greatly appreciate it. I hope we'll see you again sometime soon. And just ahead, the president says he respects the appointment of the special counsel to look into the Russia investigation, despite challenging the investigation as a witch hunt. Plus, James Comey didn't even want to be seen shaking hands with the president, let alone being pulled in for a big old hug. We're going to have the story behind that awkward exchange in the White House Blue Room and how he tried to hide himself in curtains. Much more ahead from here in Washington. And Willie Geist, home alone in New York. It's so sad.
Did you at any time urge former FBI Director James Comey in any way, shape, or form to close or to back down the investigation into Michael Flynn? And also, as you look back...
No. Next question.
That was quite a press conference, by the way. We're going to get like a 4-minute chunk of him because it's just great. I'm going to straighten my tie first. Then we're going to get a 4-minute chunk of him contradicting himself. I got the check mark on the tie. But this White House, they can't keep up. Is Willie up in New York?
Yes.
Willie, how are you doing this morning?
Well, it's like Home Alone 2, the one where he's left in New York alone.
Yeah.
It's just me.
That's the one where he meets Trump.
Look at
so
it. Yeah. Look at this. It's very sad. Jen's here, Joe's here, a few of the guys are here, but just me and Donald Trump in the lobby of the Plaza, Home Alone 2.
Well, I was going to say, go to the Plaza. Maybe you'll see the Donald there.
Of the vetting process. What my belief is, they really wanted this guy to be a part of their operation, period. But we're a better country than that. That's why we have a vetting process. And so we're going to have to look at vetting, no matter what. Who's the president?
Right. Well, you got a lot of things to look at, Congressman Cummings. Thank you for coming on New Day to discuss what matters to the American people. You're always welcome here, sir, as you know.
Thank you.
All right. There is a lot of news. What do you say? Let's get after it.
Believe me, there's no collusion. Who's going to be outstanding?
In a very divided country, Joe Lieberman's probably the only person who could get 100 votes in the Senate.
I think it's a mistake to nominate anyone who's ever run for office.
This is New Day with Chris Cuomo and Allison Camerata.
Good morning. Welcome to your New Day. Allison is off. Brooke Baldwin joins me, and thank you for doing so.
Got it. Good morning.
A defiant President Trump categorically denies he asked James Comey to drop the FBI's investigation into Michael Flynn, declaring once again that he is the victim of a witch hunt and blasting the appointment of a special counsel. He says no one cares about these issues.
Meantime, a friend of the fired FBI director is breaking his silence. He says James Comey was uncomfortable with interacting with the president and disgusted by that now infamous hug in the Oval Office there. So we have it all covered for you this morning. Joe Johns, I'm starting with you there at the White House. Good morning.
Good morning, Brooke. It's been a week of enormously serious developments for an already embattled White House. And the president, for the first time, actually answering questions about his interactions with the fired FBI director, and also talking just a little bit about how he feels about the Russia investigation.
I think it divides the country. I think we have a very divided country because of that and many other things.
President Trump slamming the appointment of a special counsel as bad for the country.
I respect the move, but the entire thing has been a witch hunt, and there is no collusion between certainly myself and my campaign, but I can always speak for myself and the Russians. Zero.
The president clearly distancing himself from his own campaign. Mr. Trump also denying reports that he tried to interfere in the FBI's investigation into former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn.
Did you at any time urge former FBI